Previously on the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast.
And we're coming to the very end of our current Doctor cycle. So my choice is a fourth Doctor novel.
Yep.
And in looking over the past year and our book picks, one author stood out that I wanted to hear more from.
Okay.
So to close out our current Doctor cycle, we'll be reading a fourth Doctor novel by James Goss, but maybe not the one you were expecting.
Okay.
So we are going to be reading Doctor Who and the Krikkitmen, based on story or treatment or script or outline by Douglas Adams and realized by James Goss.
Oh, fantastic.
And now our story continues.
Welcome, everyone, to the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. This is Matt in Minnesota.
Chris in South London. How's it going, Matt?
Doing pretty well. We're recording this over the long Memorial Day weekend here in the States, which has been cool and gloomy here in Minnesota, which suits perfectly as I'm an avid indoorsman, so it works. How have you been?
I got sunburnt yesterday.
What were you up to yesterday?
So yesterday I was at the cricket watching live sport. This may be somewhat more relevant than the casual listener might be expecting.
Fits right into our book this month.
It does, yes.
Which is Doctor Who and the Krikkitmen by Douglas Adams / James Goss.
Yes. I was experiencing the novelty of live sport in a socially distanced manner.
But not at Lord's, right?
No, not at Lord's, which is where we will see some of the book. But anyway.
Have you listened to any of the Eccleston audios yet?
No, not as yet, no. No, have you?
I've started listening to them. I've listened to 2 of the 3 so far. Really, really enjoying them and Eccleston's performance, but I have to admit the plot hasn't stuck. If you ask me what happened in the first 2 books, or the first 2 audios, I couldn't tell you, but it was fun and there were lots of explosions. So
yeah. Okay.
Do you have any plans to go to Time Fracture? I saw that just opened this week in London.
We were discussing just now, Lauren and I, about theatres, and I'm like, yeah, we're just going to just wait to see a little bit more, I think. Mm-hmm. Though yesterday I used public transport for the first time this decade. Yeah.
That's a great way to phrase it. Had a couple of book news related items. We continue to see a lot of buzz about Alex Kingston's recent River Song novel, The Ruby's Curse. Mm-hmm. And last month we had mentioned that Steve Cole had said on Twitter that he had a hand in some of the writing for it. But it turns out that Jacqueline Rayner also helped Alex write the novel, and we didn't mean to leave her out, especially in an episode covering her work. It's just that we didn't know at the time or have access to the copyright page to see who worked on what. So Jack Rayner worked on that. And of course, this month sees the release of 2 titles by her, Legends of Camelot with the 10th Doctor and the Wonderful Doctor of Oz, which sees the 13th Doctor encountering Missy as the Wicked Witch of the West. So exciting stuff. And then in July, Panini is going to be releasing their 31st in their line of remastered graphic novels. This one is The Age of Chaos, written by Colin Baker, and it'll also include some tales with the 3rd, 4th, and 7th Doctors. So, lots of fun stuff coming out over the summer months.
Yeah.
Chris, this I think brings us to show and tell.
It does. So
what do you have for us?
So I'm going to be slightly kind of like Doctor Who adjacent. There's a fantastic podcast series called Out to Lunch that features Jay Rayner, who people might know as one of the judges on the British TV series MasterChef. and in which he interviews celebrities over lunch. And I don't know if he's a Doctor Who fan or if he's got a Doctor Who fan who does his bookings. But he's had Alex Kingston, he's had RTD, he's had Mark Gatiss. And the RTD and Alex Kingston episodes are brilliant. And he coaxes some anecdotes out of RTD that I hadn't heard before. Yeah, and bless him, he's been still recording them during the pandemic, but obviously he can't hang out with his guests, so he does it over a kind of like a Zoom call. And so it also has like Russell Tovey, and
oh wow, a lot of Doctor Who folks.
Yeah, a lot of Doctor Who. There's also someone else who's been in the news that has a Doctor Who pedigree, so I'm just putting that out there. But so you can choose to listen to that episode or not. But yeah, it's a very good series, and he's such a good interviewer. And also, as I say, he does seem to be quite knowledgeable, suspiciously knowledgeable, I think.
And what was the title of it again?
Out to Lunch.
Okay.
I think he would describe himself as a casual viewer rather than a fan.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't heard of that. I'll have to check it out.
No, it's very good. How about yourself?
So a couple weeks ago, I decided to watch the Doctor Who TV movie again. And this viewing was prompted by my husband, Matt, who listeners can hear on our April Fool's episodes. And he hadn't seen the movie for at least a decade and wanted to give it another try. So we, on Friday, May 14th, 25 years to the day of the TV movie airing in the States, which I know it has like 3 different debut dates, depending on if you go by the US, the BBC, or the VHS release. But it was great fun. It was just, despite things kind of falling apart in the third act, but very impressed with Paul McGann and some wonderfully doctory moments, and that TARDIS interior is just incredible, and some laugh out loud and uncomfortable moments, especially between the Master and Chang Li. Matt's favorite line, though, in the TV movie is, "I always dress for the occasion." And quick story about my first viewing of the TV movie. I don't think I've ever shared this on the podcast. So even though I became a fan during the Eighth Doctor era, that particular night, I wasn't able to set the VCR because there were other things going on and being recorded, and then was promptly told, "Oh, hey, we have to go to your grandparents' house to do a bunch of chores for them." So I caught the first 10 minutes of the TV movie at my grandparents' house, sneaking into their bedroom to turn the TV on when I was supposed to be outside, like, working on stuff, and then missed most of the episode. Then I caught the final 15 minutes or so when I was back home, and it would be another year or two before I could watch it properly, thanks to VHS versions that I got from Kathy Sullivan, noted Big Finish author, who was sharing stuff through the old VHS tape trees, and that's where I got all my missing episodes from too. And she actually gave me 2 versions of it, both the edited BBC VHS release, but then also an off-air recording from Fox. But I didn't get those for about 2 years after the TV movie aired, so to experience the story, I had actually read the novelization, recently re-released as a Target book, to fill in all the gaps. Kind of a fraught 2-year experience to actually see the whole thing, but that came back to mind as I was rewatching it on its 25th anniversary.
And this was the first time you'd seen Doctor Who in any form, wasn't it?
It was, except for, a couple of snippets here and there on PBS growing up.
Yeah.
But and of course, watching that opening narration, I had done my homework and had bought, I think, the Peter Haining Time Traveler's Guide from Barnes & Noble, in the weeks leading up to the TV movie. So I had read that cover to cover. And so I'm sitting there, like, listening to the opening narration thinking, oh, this is wonderful. I've done my homework and check, yep, I know what Gallifrey is. I know who the Master is. I know who the Daleks are. And I know what Scarrow is. So I was like,
cool.
Why wouldn't everyone just love this?
Yes.
How could the opening put anyone off? So, that was the TV movie. And so, 25 years of being a Doctor Who fan as well.
Wow. Yes, that is fantastic.
Yeah.
Because in the UK, it was shown this holiday weekend 25 years ago. Not the exact date, but but yeah. So I always associate this time of year with Paul McGann. So
lovely.
And having my hopes built up and then dashed by nothing happening.
The next few years were very, like, tense, like, oh, is something happening? Oh, watching the deadlines kind of come and go for, here's where Fox orders their back 9 of whatever series they're considering, and it just didn't materialize. But we got plenty of books and audios out of the deal, so feel okay about how things turned out.
Yeah, now, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. With hindsight, yeah.
My 1999 self, I think, was still quite bitter and twisted about the whole thing.
Yeah. Oh. So this month we are reading Doctor Who and the Krikkitmen, which also finishes off another Doctor cycle for the podcast, our third. And this book was first published in January of 2018. It's available in both hardcover and paperback, and digitally, of course. And then there's an audiobook version read by Dan Starkey that was released on CD. And let's start maybe a little bit with Douglas Adams. He was born in Cambridge in 1952. Educated at Brentwood School in Essex and St. John's College in Cambridge, where he read English, and as well as writing all the different and conflicting versions of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He's been responsible for Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, The Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul, and with John Lloyd, The Meaning of Life. And in 78-79, of course, he worked as script editor on Doctor Who, writing 3 scripts for the program, The Pirate Planet, City of Death, under the name David Agnew, and of course Shada. And he unfortunately passed away in May of 2001, very untimely. And James Goss, of course, we've read The Blood Cell by him last year, and he's the author of the novelization of Douglas Adams' City of Death, as well as The Pirate Planet, and several other Doctor Who books. And while he was at the BBC working on the website, he produced and I think commissioned the adaptation of Shada, featuring the 8th Doctor. And then he also adapted Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency for the stage in an award-winning play called Dirk.
I'd never heard of Dirk, I must say. Maybe it might have been on when I wasn't in and around London. But, yeah.
And he won the Best Audiobook in 2010 for Dead Air, which is, I think, a David Tennant story. And then most recently, of course, he was the overall series producer and coordinator for the epic Time Lord Victorious multimedia event, which is still playing out in some circles. Although Time Fractures seem to have dropped a lot of the Time Lord Victorious branding from its promotion and stuff.
Yeah, I guess you don't want to put off potential punters in an environment when audiences are possibly a little bit wary of going into to the theatre anyway. But yeah.
And I have to confess, I've never read anything by Douglas Adams cover to cover.
Oh, wow.
Despite having an omnibus of all of the Hitchhiker books sitting on my shelf for the past 20 years. I mean, I've seen the BBC miniseries of Hitchhikers several times, have seen the early 2000s movie once or twice, and then have listened to the original radio versions a few times as well. So I'm kind of coming at this from the perspective of someone who's unfamiliar with how the storyline is somewhat recycled from Life, the Universe, and everything. So
yeah,
coming at it fairly fresh.
Okay. Yeah, cool. One cool thing, well, in fact, 2 cool things about Douglas Adams, actually, I thought would be worth mentioning. That he was the first person in all of Europe to buy a Mac.
Oh, wow.
Which I thought was quite cool. Second person was Stephen Fry, and they were great friends. And so just before he tragically passed away, he'd been doing some experimenting with a kind of version of Mac OS X, S10, which he was quite impressed with. And so he put a review praising it on his website, which was the last thing that he ever published. And it finishes with the word awesome. Which I think is quite lovely.
Yeah.
So, awesome, and then ellipses. Yeah, sorry, I don't know where we go from that, but yeah.
The book itself is organized into, it has an introduction, which are remarks by Douglas Adams from the initial 1976 presentation for the Krikkitmen, where he kind of talks and goes through different aspects of establishing science fiction universes, that, you know, one of those key things being needing to hold to an internally consistent universe. And then there are 42 titled chapters, of course, which familiar with that number, and then 3 appendices, and the book itself is divided into 2 parts. Part 1 is 18 chapters and part 2 is 24 chapters. Yeah. The chapter titles throughout the book are very funny and are very, you know, kind of Hitchhiker's Guide. Yeah. And each part begins with some quotes. And then we also get a series of footnotes throughout the book. And on the audiobook version, they're just read embedded in the narrative. And the audiobook is kind of that enhanced variety, which has added music and sound effects, the same sort of treatment that Human Nature got. However, the audio does not include any of the content from the 3 appendices, unfortunately. This book features the 4th Doctor, the 2nd Romana, and K9. And Romana references the Naimon in the book, so it's set sometime, I want to say pre-season 18, when Douglas Adams left, and the show kind of changed format where they traded in some of the lighthearted camp for some more serious science. So do we want to maybe start with the quotes?
Yes, I think one of the quotes, if not both of the quotes, I think would have been an interesting test for you. So the first quote is from Brian Johnston in 1991, where he says, "Aggers, for goodness sake, stop it. He hit a 4 over the wicketkeeper's head, and he was out for 9. I suspect that probably didn't mean an enormous amount to you."
It didn't, yeah.
No.
And I'm not familiar with cricket at all.
No, okay.
I did read like a brief Wikipedia thing, and it totally didn't make sense to me. And then I watched a 2-minute video on YouTube. Also, didn't sink in. And then I've also attended Paul Cornell's Cricket 101 panel several times at Convergence, including going out to the hotel parking lot to watch a demo. And that didn't help either, so... I think I'm kind of hopeless when it comes to the rules.
Okay. But the story that Brian Johnson quote relates to is quite a funny one. It's one of the more famous commentating goofs, certainly in the UK. Aggers, known as Jonathan Agnew, no relation to David, I suspect. So he was just starting out his commentary career, and there was a very key match between England and the West Indies, and the English batsman accidentally hit the wicket, which is these kind of like free raised pieces of wood in those days, with his leg, which meant that he went out. And Aggers said that he was, I'm slightly paraphrasing here, but he just didn't quite get his leg over. At which point they just descend into chaos of kind of like laughing. But interestingly, Brian Johnston apparently, because he was very much a senior broadcaster, he went home furious because he thought that they were going to get sacked. Apparently. And he felt that the BBC would be reprimanding them at the very least. And that was not how it panned out. It was just, people just loved them even more for it. So it's Brian Johnson trying to exert some control whilst chaos was happening all around them.
In looking at that quote, because I see the 2 names mentioned, and my immediate thought was, I wonder if one of these 2 names is the cricket guy that shows up in the More Than 30 Years in the TARDIS documentary. But
no,
that's where my mind went. But
no, that's Mike Gatting, I think, from memory, who would have been playing. He would have been playing in that match, I think, guessing. Yeah.
The other quote is, "What are the ashes? A, what England have. B, what Australia want. Or C, what Granny is." And it's Sign on a Van 2016.
Yes. And so the Ashes is a trophy that's competed between England and Australia in cricket. And it is one of the bigger trophies in cricket, but physically it's a very small thing. It is kind of like a very small urn because people were so dismayed with England's performance, having lost to Australia at home, they burnt one of the wickets, and that is apparently kept in the urn. There are other theories, but then when England went to Australia next to play them again, which had been by boat, because we're talking like 1870 odd. They took the urn with them. The England captain befriended a woman who was travelling on the boat to emigrate, and so she wrote a little poem to go on to the urn. So it's also a love story because they ended up getting married.
That's cool.
I mean, the poem is complete doggerel, and I'm not going to quote it, but because I can't remember it. But yeah, it's quite sweet.
Someone in the crowd in the book says that the Ashes are held every 4 years, but I had thought it was just in looking, every 2 years, but rotating between countries. So
yes,
from that punter's perspective, it would be every 4 years in the UK.
Yes, yeah, because also as well, people wouldn't necessarily be thinking about it. So.
I did find it odd with all the cricket, picturing the 4th Doctor in the story. I kept wanting to visualize the 5th Doctor at parts, and
Yeah.
For some reason, too, and I think this has to do with one of the storyline elements of collecting and assembling, I kept visualizing Mary Tam and not Lalla Ward as Romana. But yeah, it's definitely the Fourth Doctor in Romana, too.
Right. Shall we get started?
Yeah, let's jump in.
Yes. Yeah, so the book opens with an omniscient narrator. Not unlike the ones that you find in Hitchhiker's Guide, but this narrator is the Matrix. And so we move through the galaxy to focus on New York City. And there's a couple of deaths in a kind of a whimsical Douglas Adams kind of style. And then travel back millions of years to learn of an ancient alien civilization called the Alovians, who are very aggressive. And they developed an organic computer called Hector, which in turn developed an ultimate weapon with a flaw built in that would make it fall apart if used. The Alovians eventually wipe themselves and Hector out. Or so the story goes.
And with that opening narration, Hector's weapon reminded me, not unlike the failsafe boxes in Zygon Inversion, Zygon Invasion, or artificial intelligence in the moment that evaluates its user. So kind of along those same lines.
Yeah.
And then we find ourselves in late 1970s London, where we join Romana, who's upset with the Doctor for bringing her to a cricket match, the TARDIS having materialized at Lord's Cricket Ground in St. John's Wood, which is in London.
Yeah, it's near Baker Street.
Oh, okay.
So it's moderately central-ish. Yeah, it's on the northern edge of Central.
Romana chalks the visit up to the Doctor being a self-described Anglophile, and the Doctor and Romana, while remembering to wear ties at Lord's, are otherwise not dressed appropriately and are admonished by a deadly tide of tweed and the blistering force of middle-aged disapproval. The Doctor tells the onlookers that he and Romana are from is it Marylebone?
Marylebone.
Cricket Club, which I guess runs the Lord's facility or
yes,
is kind of the sponsor of.
Yeah, and in those days it ran cricket worldwide.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And he presents a card signed by W.G. Grace from 1877, who I have no idea who that is either.
Yes, so W.G. Grace is this very famous cricketer to cricket people who carried on playing until he was 50. How would I describe him? Brian Blessed.
Okay.
Brian Blessed with a bat.
Got it.
I don't think Brian Blessed's ever played. W.G. Grace, I think that's something he's missed out on.
When the Doctor's kind of talking about being a fan of all things British, Romana's kind of rolling her eyes at him and says, yeah, you like things like stately homes so much you've blown up at least a dozen of them. And then so they sit down to watch the match, and we learn that this is the Ashes, that famous series that we talked about held every 2 years. And the Doctor comments that no one ever wins cricket, and he promptly vanishes from the viewing area, headed down to the grounds.
Yeah. When it says no one ever wins cricket, because cricket can go on for 5 days in the kind of like the test formation of the game, because there's various different formats, but like the test format goes on for 5 days, and you can have a draw, and often that is the more likely outcome. Because yesterday when I was at the cricket, that was day 3 of 4.
Ah. Wow.
So it's kind of like you come in, you read up what's been happening overnight, and it's going to, oh, okay, fine.
It's kind of like joining a soap already in progress, sort of.
Yeah. You don't know quite what the needle points have been, so you just need to might help to read a summary, or you can just sit there and drink a beer and eat some slightly disappointing pizza. But yeah, and the stuff about the dress code, Lord's itself, in the general area, it says no fancy dress, but other than that, it doesn't have a dress code. However, the dress code in the members' friends enclosures, my gosh. There's no garments in military camouflage colours. There's a whole host of things, including anyone wearing dilapidated or offensive garments of any kind will not be permitted under any circumstances.
Wow.
What's a dilapidated garment?
No holes in it, I guess.
Yes.
Finely woven material.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes. My allegiance for cricket is very much south of the river, so not Lord's. But anyway, right, okay. So the Doctor has headed down to the pitch and jumps up on a kind of like a stage that they've assembled for the post-match award ceremony. And England has won, which I think in the 70s they did win quite a bit, but we went about 18 years without winning it.
Do you know who the current holder of the Ashes is? Is it?
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
So your other half is probably pleased with that.
Yes. 2019, it was a drawn series, and if it's a drawn series, it means whoever held it going into the series retains it.
Oh, so it's coming back this summer then?
No. Well, yeah, it's in Australia in the Australian summer / Northern Hemisphere winter.
Okay.
So I've been lucky enough to have seen one day of play at an Ashes match. So it was one where everything happened, which is actually really exciting. But then it can be tense, but also quite time consuming. But, anyway, right. So the Doctor's interrupting the awards ceremony, and there's no security around to speak of because this is cricket. And he asks about what the ashes are made of that are actually inside the little urn, the trophy. And then suddenly, some killer robots arrive. These are called the Krikkitmen. Cricket spelt Krikkit. And they're a dozen robotic figures with red eyes, and they're dressed in impeccable bright white cricket uniforms. And they emerge from a cricket pavilion that has materialised on the pitch, and they start moving around unnaturally, a bit like clockwork droids. And cricket pavilions, you and I were having a little conversation yesterday.
Yeah.
about pavilions.
About what these are and what they look like.
Because you were like, what is the size? Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, I looked at it, I was thinking, oh, it kind of looks like a tiny house with, front porches and little steeples. And I realized they can kind of vary in size, too. And I might have been looking at some more rural ones. But they can get quite elaborate, too.
Yes, yeah, because I showed you a picture of the one at the Oval, which is quite large. But also that's got seating built into it. But yeah, like for the most part, they tend to be like a 2-story building, and even then, it might even just like be a 1-story. But like where they've got space for the players that aren't on the pitch, so the batting side to watch the action, and it also doubles as the changing rooms.
Yeah, it's kind of like Americans would probably think it's like a combination dugout, like in baseball, if it was directly attached to the locker room.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to think about it.
And a little meeting hall, too, where they have their trophies displayed and stuff, sometimes.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, and I remember one time, because I was a cricket scorer, Matt, when I was a kid, which meant that I had to travel around with a team because it's a dedicated role where you have a piece of paper and you write down using specific symbols what happens with each ball. And so I was doing my scoring, which sometimes you do in the pavilion or sometimes you do in a dedicated scoring hut. And when somebody went absolutely berserk when someone with long hair was going into the pavilion and it said, "No women are allowed in here." And it turned out it was just a bloke with long hair. Gives you an insight.
Yeah.
So we've got the cricket men sort of wandering around like robots, and then they suddenly start slaughtering players and crowd alike with their sharpened steel bats. They're also capable of firing laser bolts, and Romana tries to use the TARDIS as a blockade, landing it on its side on the pitch to provide the Doctor some cover, but isn't quite fast enough to stop the robots from kind of like carrying out their massacre and retrieving the ashes. I must say, I thought this was a bit of a grim start.
Yeah.
There is a lot of death here.
When Romana runs into the TARDIS, there's a delightful line about the TARDIS interior and the nod to the hospital location filming in The Invasion of Time, where Romana describes it as decorated with the verve of a hospital run by an antiques dealer. Very interesting start to the affair, and as the robots retreat and dematerialize in their pavilion tent, the Doctor and his companions survey the devastation. Romana remarks that she thought that the Krikkitmen were all destroyed some 2 million years ago, And there's a great line here about time-taught education where the doctor agrees and he says, I used to be frightened with stories of them when I was a child. And then, me too, agreed Romana, wondering again why so much of Time Lord education involved terrifying the young. So then the doctor, presumably disabling the randomizer throughout this entire book because that doesn't come into play, he pilots the TARDIS back to the capital on Gallifrey. And this is Romana's first trip back since her Key to Time assignment. And she's worried that the Time Lords will remember that she's overdue on her assignment and, they might recall her back. And the doctor remembers that he's president as they're escorted deep within the capital to visit acting President Baruza himself. And upon greeting his visitors, Baruza reminisces about tutoring Romana back when she was in her first incarnation and kind of thinking through the differences between the first and second Romanas, contrasting with what he's observing of Romana in her current regeneration, which I thought was a nice little character touch. There really are so many just really nice kind of call forwards and callbacks here. Like when Romana is at Lord's, she's deeply embarrassed on the off chance that anyone from Gallifrey would see her at a cricket match and how that might hurt her future chances of one day becoming Lord President. Not that she has any ambitions in that arena. So, or there's a reference, I think, to the cricket having designed tissue compression devices, and perhaps the master's weapon is cricket in origin. So there's just lots of little nuggets like that throughout.
Yeah. Also, so there's a line saying that at least a dozen races had given cricket as their reason for attacking Earth. And says it went a long way to explain why most invasions began in the home counties.
Yeah. That's a great line. And I'm not sure if Romana's first return to Gallifrey here contradicts anything from Goth Opera or Blood Harvest, because I know she goes back in those books too, but anyway.
So the Doctor and Romana rather dramatically tell Barusa that the Krikkitmen have returned. And Barusa goes off to consult the Matrix, whilst Romana and the Doctor reunite with K9. And the Doctor makes sure that it's the current K9, and notes that there's another version on the planet somewhere with Leela off in some beige wasteland.
Yeah, there's a great description of Gallifrey where it's full of endless, identical marmalade days of orange and beige, a perpetual sunrise or sunset. I thought that was a nice description.
Yes. Yeah, Gallifrey really does come to beige life, doesn't it, in this? So K9 and Romana come to the conclusion that the Matrix is corrupt or faulty because it didn't predict the return of the Krikkitmen. And the Matrix provides some backstory about the people of Krikkit in the form of a tutorial. The Doctor, Romana and K9 visiting a simulation of the planet, Krikkit, complete with a PowerPoint presentation. Yeah.
That sequence just felt very holodeck, and the guided tour was very cinematic. It reminded me a bit of the tour sequence with Martin Freeman and Slarta Bartfast from the Hitchhiker's movie, where he's like pointing out, here's the fjords and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I guess it does, yeah. But yeah, so they note how the planet Krikkit was shrouded in a dust cloud. So at night there were no stars, and the people of Krikkit thought they were alone in the universe until a piece of a derelict ship crashed on their planet, revealing the truth. And almost overnight, the people of Krikkit became a spacefaring species in light of the new knowledge, and also as well the threat, the fact that they are not alone. And within a year, they were able to send probes beyond the dust cloud. And they quickly transformed into a very xenophobic species, afraid of the outside world. Yep.
There's a great inversion here presented. So they talk about kind of the antiquated notion of race memory, which has come up in Doctor Who before, I think even as most recently as like Ghostlight, where it's kind of an outdated colonial and frankly a little bit racist notion of thoughts or predilections being present in an entire race of humans, or in this case, other alien species. But I love how the Doctor kind of inverts that and casually applies it to the aristocratic, presumably all-white, British crowd that's in attendance at Lord's, and says that the English feel angry and ashamed and very intolerant of outsiders, and they've not a clue why. And when you think about, like, when this book was released in 2018 and kind of as a not so subtle commentary on Brexit and its aftermath and, the rise of nationalist movements, I just thought that line was really well timed and placed.
Yep. And also, I suspect James Goss might have been to Lord's.
Yeah.
Though I've only been to Lord's once to watch cricket, and it was perfectly fine. Yeah, I've told you off air, but I had to get a receipt, and this guy wrote this receipt out from scratch with a quill. It's just ridiculous stuff. There are printers. Yeah, I mean, and this wasn't in. Yeah, this was about 12 years ago, but it's like, guys, you must have printers.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of money. I'm sure you could afford it.
Yeah. The Matrix here is described as instead of developing an internet, the Gallifreyans had built a library of souls and opinions, a vast databank of I told you so. Their acquired wisdom was available to anyone who asked. This wisdom could be summarized as no sudden moves. So true. Oh. So then we learned that the Cricket had, through this tutorial, had designed the Krikkitmen, the killer robots from earlier, and sent them out to cleanse the universe of non-cricket life. And this had been at a time of great galactic peace, after the creatures from the dark times, like the great vampires, the Jagaroth, and the Rachnos, have died off. And this, I think, shows James Goss's kind of fascination with the dark times, too, because that's built up quite heavily in Time Lord Victorious.
Yeah.
And this piece was commemorated by the creation of the Great Wicket Gate. And to show how everyone these days got along, it consisted of 3 vertical sticks with 2 shorter horizontal ones balanced between them. And the 3 vertical sticks consisted of a steel beam to represent strength and power, a perspex or plastic one to represent science and reason, and a wooden one to represent all the forces of nature. And then the 2 short sticks that were supported were called the gold bale of prosperity and the silver bale of peace. And as well as the Great Wicket Gate itself, you could buy versions of this symbol all over the place and in all sorts of sizes. Of course, merchandising opportunity.
Yeah.
But the piece itself was violently ended by the arrival of the cricket, and it said that the Daleks killed with a sneer, the Cybermen killed silently, but the Krikkitmen applaud each other. And after 1,000 years of genocide brought on by Krikkitmen advances, the Time Lords finally agree to intervene, abandoning their pledge of non-interference just this once.
Yeah, so the Doctor and Romana, they're somewhat dissatisfied with the Matrix's version of events. So they decide to head back in time and find out what happened during the ceasefire negotiations themselves. And there they encounter a Cardinal Melia, a Time Lord, holding court in a war TARDIS and influencing the peace talks, has to be said. And the Time Lords propose wrapping the planet Krikkit in slow time, isolating its inhabitants forever until the end of the universe, which makes everyone happy, including the xenophobic inhabitants of Krikkit, because they'll emerge at the end of time, truly alone in the universe, just like they always wanted.
Yeah. And when they're talking about the Time Lords not intervening during the onslaught of the Krikkitmen, I think there's a delightful little jab at Star Wars where the narrative says, there were no intergalactic wars to get involved in, just the odd taxation skirmish, which even the Time Lords couldn't find interesting. Implying that if the Jedi had minded their own business about the Naboo blockade, the entirety of Star Wars could have been sidestepped and they wouldn't have fallen into Palpatine's trap.
Yep.
So then we find a lone Krikkitman soldier who's cloaked with a perception filter that makes it invisible to the inhabitants of this time, who's chasing the Doctor, Romana, and K9 across a narrow gantry with heavy shades of Logopolis foreshadowing before being outwitted by a false projection from our heroes, courtesy of K9. And the Doctor and Romana pilot the TARDIS farther forward in time, this time to an asteroid on the edge of the dust cloud that surrounds the planet of Krikkit. And the forces of the galaxy had recreated the Wicket Gate on the asteroid, and whereas once it had been a symbol of universal peace, it was now the key to the lock holding the slow time envelope in place. And a Krikkit scout ship, one of these pavilion ones, perhaps the same one encountered at Lord's, flew into the wicker gate lock, scattering its 5 pieces, as well as the pavilion ship itself, into the time vortex. And the Doctor confirms that the ashes of the wooden stump that were housed in the trophy are in fact part of this locking device. And then we realize that the Doctor and Romana are on another quest, kind of like the Key to Time, but this time to collect the 5 pieces of the Wicket Gate before the Krikkitmen can. They're really either trying to collect them or prevent the Krikkitmen from, fully assembling the gate, because all they really need is one piece to stop them.
Yeah. So we now shift our attention to the Great Khan, a tiger-like alien warlord in the middle of conquering a planet. And he is slow cooking the Doctor, who is captured, and is just turning him over a fire, whilst answering some questions from Romana, who's posing as a conquest inspector, evaluating him and advising him that Khan better kind of like look sharp, because the fearsome dominators are also in contention for the award. Oh yes, the dominators. I hope the dominators never pop up in book form.
Or show up in the new series. Although the Quarks could be kind of cute to see, I guess.
Yeah. So a particular interest to Romana is the steel totem pole that's somewhere on the planet. But Romana is too late, because while she's been freeing the Doctor from his predicament, the Krikkitmen arrive and take the pole, which is on a remote island, and destroy the island in an explosion, for good measure, because they're those kind of robots.
Yeah. During the description of the Great Khan, we get a line about Gallifreyan cats. And Gallifreyan cats, by the way, have 13 lives, and they sleep through all of them soundly, which I thought was a lovely little aside. And I really do enjoy the fetch quest aspects of this. It's similar to what you'd see with the Keys of Marinus or the Key to Time, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed that.
Yeah. Turning their attention to the second piece of the Wicket Gate, the TARDIS arrive on a rain-soaked planet. This time it's a planet whose inhabitants take great offense at everything and are very litigious. And this time they're looking for a plastic perspex tube, but the Doctor's promptly locked up for perceived offenses. And during his court case, with K9 acting as his defense counsel, the Doctor realizes that the judge's gavel is actually a plastic rod, and it's the next bit of the wicket they need. And they manage to retrieve it in the chaos after the Krikkitmen attack the courthouse, and Romana rescues the Doctor by deftly materializing the TARDIS around the Doctor, which we see in the new series, but hadn't really seen in the classic series like that before. Mm-hmm. And they now have one piece out of the 5, the plastic tube, and the Krikkitmen now have 2 pieces, the steel totem and then the wooden ashes from earlier.
Yeah, and the Doctor and Romana then appear on a water planet and go undercover in a fish canning factory for quite some time, whilst they're looking for the golden bale, which they learn has been housed in a bank vault for safekeeping. And here we're introduced to Mr. Fug, a native of the planet, who thought up the concept of mortgages and fines and a debt economy, which had swept up the populace, taken root, and stopped their former more casual fish trading way of existence. And it's about here where we get our dramatic reading.
It is, yeah. This is where dramatic reading comes in, and this is an exchange between Mr. Fug and the Doctor and Romana outside the TARDIS, which has been illegally parked and has been generating some fines for some time. And this reading is a brief excerpt from the BBC audiobook, performed by Dan Starkey, and it's available wherever books are sold and on Audible, so let's have a listen.
Ognomous Fug himself was standing outside the TARDIS. He'd had a boring day and fancied a laugh. "I'm a busy man, but intrigued." He rapped a fat knuckle on the side of the blue wooden box. "So, would you care to explain to me how this thing parked on my pavement is worth a lot of money? It's barely large enough for a family of 4. Suppressing a small shudder, the Doctor shook Mr. Fug by the hand and marvelled at how the man had managed to get fat to deposit around his knuckles. "Mr. Fug, delighted to meet you," the Doctor lied. "You're in for a treat." And with that, he unlocked the door of the TARDIS. The richest man on Devlin gaped. Not an optical illusion, not a projection, not a virtual reality, not a hallucination. Romana ticked them off her fingers. "Go inside and have a look," the Doctor encouraged. Mr. Fug walked into the TARDIS. He didn't even notice the robot dog which warily followed his every move. Well, until his fingers hovered over a shiny gold trifle on a desk, and K9 cleared his throat with butlerish aplomb. "How big is this house?" Mr. Fugg eventually called from the rear of the control room. At this, the Doctor threw back his head and roared with laughter. "Infinite!" he said. Mr. Fugg came uncertainly out of the ship, a nervous swimmer fighting against a strong tide. He looked back in, blinked, and then turned to the Doctor, rubbing his hands together. "What a wonder!" Mr. Fugg exclaimed, a sly look hooding his eyelids. "And how unfortunate for you, my dear sir, that your magnificent box should be sadly forfeit." He glanced back inside. "I'll be only too glad to make better use of this." "Ah, no." The Doctor shook his head. He held up his parking tickets. "You might want to check your new laws. I'm allowed to leave my vehicle here so long as I keep paying these excessive fines. I consider it ground rent." Mr. Fugg's face wanted to look crestfallen, but couldn't stop smiling. Surely you misinterpret my laws." "No," the Doctor laughed. "I got my dog to check the small print." "But," began Mr. Fugg, "you're off-world, and that means—" Now Romana shook her head. "I'm afraid not. We paid the fines with our wages. Earned here." The Doctor clapped his hands together. "Exciting, isn't it?" He beamed, throwing an arm round Mr. Fugg's shoulder. "Think how many people I could offer free homes to in here." "Free?" Mr. Fugg's smile finally ran away. "Oh, yes," the Doctor leaned in. "And these boxes, we have them all over my home world. Imagine what will happen when I tell my friends to park a few along here." Their eyes all wandered up to the glum grey buildings towering above them. "But surely—" began Mr. Fugg, and then his brain stopped. All he could see was the total collapse of his economy overnight, caused by a magical shed owned by a man who smelt of fish. "Just imagine." Romana took off her apron, began to fold it neatly, then threw it away. "People will learn they no longer have to pay to live somewhere, no longer have to work to pay for their house, and spend the leftovers on eating tinned fish." "Perhaps," suggested the Doctor, "they'll think about going sailing again." "I forbid it!" snapped Mr. Fugg. The Doctor closed the door of his blue box and strolled away. "I think it's too late for you to forbid anything." "No, it isn't," protested Fugg. "No one knows about this. It's just an idea." Without stopping to turn, the Doctor answered him. "No, you can't stop ideas, not once they're out of the box."
Thanks, Dan, for reading that. And yeah, the audio is available on Audible, the streaming service, as well as iTunes, Amazon, and Audio CD if you still listen to those. So yeah. I thought that ended with a great little line about not being able to keep ideas in a box.
Yeah. So as the Doctor and Romana are making their way away from a despondent Mr. Fugg, they are rocked by an explosion as the Krikkitmen have blown up the bank where the golden sphere was kept and have stolen the bale for themselves. And so the score is now 1-3. Not a cricketing score. Our pair of intrepid Time Lords now set off for the planet's Bethselamin? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll go with that, Bethselamin.
Which shows up in Hitchhiker too, I think.
Yes, it does, doesn't it? Yeah. A planet without the colour purple. And they're trying to find the Silver Bale of Peace. And they find Bethselamin populated with koala-like creatures and lots of eucalyptus. And the bear-like inhabitants of this world are very peaceful and have never known war. Do you know that eucalyptus is basically stones koalas?
Oh, no. So kind of like catnip or...
Well, it's like marijuana.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and so they're always eating it. It just gets them high.
Perpetually stoned.
Yes.
There are worse ways to live, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, yeah, well.
Yeah, they're one of these things that the more you look into them, the more you kind of go, yeah, you're not that cute. Anyway.
It's roundabout here, too, that Romana has to use her sonic for something, and I was completely surprised by this. I've never seen Horns of Naimon. Which is where she uses it, and so I looked it up and was very surprised that I had no idea that the sonic even existed. So that was a fun little bit there.
Yeah, it also just makes you wonder again why the Fifth Doctor, after the visitation, doesn't build a new one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Doctor finds that the planet is utterly boring. He suspects that there's some kind of mind control at work. But it turns out the koala people, really are just very friendly. And Romana tries to negotiate with their leader to take the silver rod, which is housed in their Temple of Peace. But the people don't believe her warnings of the imminent arrival of the Krikkitmen, and they start to suspect she might be trying to con them.
So, with the negotiations failing, Romana successfully navigates a short hop of the TARDIS into the temple, much to the Doctor's surprise, and there's quite a few times where it's very evident that the Doctor does not know how to steer his ship, and Romana does. And she finds a replacement piece of steel pipe from one of the TARDIS's workshops, which she plans to swap with the silver bale in the hope that the Bethsalemans don't notice. But then the Krikkitmen arrive at a very untimely moment, take the bale by force, and start slaughtering the planet. And the Doctor takes advantage of the chaos to stick his head in the Krikkitmen's pavilion ship briefly, and he's astonished to find that it's bigger on the inside. And thinking about it, he remembers that the pavilion materializes and dematerializes out of thin air too. The Doctor manages to locate an off switch for the Krikkitmen within the pavilion, throws it, and comes to the realization that the Krikkitmen are not sentient killer robots with artificial intelligence, but are, in fact, mindless automatons masquerading as intelligent androids. And he takes the time to disassemble one to examine it further, and then he announces that there are 5 million other Krikkitmen stored in a time vault on an asteroid that the Doctor has recently visited before, Shada.
Yep. So Romana stays behind on the Koala planet to round up the remains of the Krikkitmen, and she tries to pilot their cricket pavilion back to Gallifrey, whilst the Doctor and K9 take the TARDIS back to Earth to visit an old friend. Yep, it's Professor Chronotis from Shada, the serial, and they find themselves at Cambridge. And there the Doctor enjoys tea from his old mentor and again borrows the worshipful and ancient lore of Gallifrey, which is the key to accessing Shada via TARDIS. And K9 and the Doctor arrive on Shada, and they find the 5 million Krikkitmen are there in stasis. And as they prepare to jettison the pods into oblivion, they miss a warning light in the TARDIS, alerting them that the defensive screens have been breached and that there are intruders present.
And it turns out that one of the Krikkitmen was able to take control of Romana's mind, forcing her to pilot the dozen Krikkitmen from the attack at Lourdes and materialize them and their cricket pavilion deep inside the Doctor's TARDIS. And so the Krikkitmen are now able to enter Shada, where they free their 5 million brethren from stasis, and they pile into their dimensionally transcendental pavilion, escaping the prison asteroid. And worse, they're now in possession of all 5 parts of the Wicket Gate, having secured the plastic rod from a possessed Romana. And I have to say that I was not happy about Romana getting possessed.
Yeah.
And in looking through some of the appendices, in the original treatment, the Doctor's companion was either Sarah Jane or just another human woman named Jane, which made more sense because no other Time Lords were ever possessed by the Krikkitmen, and it was never explained why Romana was susceptible to it. But if James Goss is carrying forward one of those earlier companions, and just switching it up with Romana, I can see why, from a real-world perspective, why she was possessed. But within the story, it doesn't make sense to me, I guess. But anyway, so then the Krikkitmen assemble the Wicket Gate and release the planet Krikkit from its envelope of slow time. And millions of years have passed in the outside universe, but on the planet itself, only about 5 years have passed inside the envelope. So as the Krikkitmen wait in their scout ship outside the dust cloud for a signal from the planet, the Doctor announces to Romana that he has to try to reason with the people of Krikkit and try to break through their intense xenophobia. And they set course for the planet's surface as part 1 of the book ends.
And so, it was a good cliffhanger, I think, possibly.
Yeah.
So, part 2, we start off with a couple of quotes, not cricket related. So one is William Shakespeare, and there's a divinity which shapes our ends. Rough hew them how we will. And then you also have a quote from Wikipedia. List of galaxies. This is a dynamic list and may never be able to satisfy particular standards for completeness. You can help by expanding it.
I love that Romana calls out that throughout the novel there's a misuse of the terms universe, cosmos, and galaxy, and they're not supposed to be used interchangeably. And it was something that I was like silently shouting at the book for several chapters by the time, but then Romana spoke up about it and was like, oh, okay. At least they realize how ridiculous that is. But
Seeing mention of Wikipedia just makes me think, I've thought a lot over the intervening 20 years since Douglas Adams passed. It's just like, what would he be doing now? I'm sure that he would have come up with some really cool things, and it would have just been amazing to just hear his thoughts. And he would have just been fantastic on Twitter.
Yeah, he would have been.
Oh well. So the TARDIS materialises on Cricket, and the Doctor and Romana are quickly labelled as outsiders and are chased by angry mobs across the planet until they run across some reluctant rebels. And the concept of a rebellion is a new one to the planet, which has been introduced from their brief contact with the outside galaxy. And the rebels are a bit stuck because they can't seem to get beyond crafting their mission statement. And the rebels are shocked that the Doctor doesn't have a written plan, any kind of superhero costume with insignia, or even a one-page outline that they can leverage. And the Doctor decides to wage war on paperwork after he's through this adventure, which he claims is a sentient, invasive entity plaguing all civilizations. Yeah, and he says, doesn't he, that there's only one institution in the universe that's become so overwhelmed by paperwork that its employees sometimes struggle to remember what it is for. The name of this organisation is the British Broadcasting Corporation.
Oh, very on the nose.
Yes. Well, and we also find out that the Romana and the Doctor, when they were dealing with the BBC, they were trying to hunt down the celestial toy maker who'd taken over the light entertainment department, with terrible consequences for humanity and a remarkable increase in viewing figures. Of course, if Michael Grade hadn't put Doctor Who on hiatus in Colin Baker's time, we'd have seen the celestial toy maker come up against the Sixth Doctor.
Return, yeah. One, just kind of as an aside real quick, one thing I saw recently about the Fourth Doctor on Twitter that it didn't really stick out to me until someone pointed it out. The Fourth Doctor never chose any of his companions. Like, every single companion was either thrust upon him or was a stowaway or someone that he didn't invite. And, he inherited Sarah Jane. And I wonder if the Fourth Doctor would have chosen to just be solitary, the famous Tom Baker speaking to a cabbage sort of deal. But
yeah,
that is an interesting observation about the Fourth Doctor that I hadn't thought of before.
Yeah. What about K9? Does he choose K9?
It depends on what category K9 is.
Yeah, and I can't remember the end of the Invisible Enemy. But, yeah.
Anyway, so then the Doctor and Romana meet up with Jal. She's the rebel leader who's pregnant with her husband's unborn child, who her husband was killed due to some fighting. And they learn that the people of Cricket have been spending the last 5 years within the time envelope working on an ultimate weapon called the supernova bomb, which is a ridiculous title that reminds the Doctor and Romana of the name of a cheap cocktail drink. Supernova bomb.
Do you think that's a pop at RTD and things like Reality Bomb?
Maybe. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the supernova bomb was named that in Douglas Adams' original treatment.
Oh yeah.
From back in the day, but yeah. So then a Krikkitman appears in the rebel encampment, and K9 opens fire on him. And Jal politely asks K9 to stop shooting at her new husband, who is a non-networked, abandoned Krikkitman who isn't as evil as his counterparts. And they dub this nice Krikkitman Sir Robot. And the Doctor suspects that there's something more complicated going on, and that there's an unseen force at work. And we do get a cameo earlier in the book, which we didn't mention, from the White Guardian, where it kind of talks about the key to time and stuff, so...
So a small band of rebels accompany the Doctor, Romana and K9 to the parliamentary building. The parliament appears empty, and they break in by having K9 blast the front door, which had been unresponsive to the Doctor's sonic screwdriver. And K9 scans the building and downloads its blueprints and discovers that there's 3 hidden subterranean levels accessible via a seemingly abandoned elevator shaft, which is convenient. And the Doctor and Romana make their way through the undergallery, where all the paintings from before the war are, and they're kind of like depicting the Cricket doing non-violent things. And they retrieve the plans of the supernova bomb, just as some Krikkitmen hack. and they discover that plans are incomplete, as if the cricket had run out of science whilst they were making the bomb. And Romana finds a Krikkitman and tries to interrogate it. And the robot reveals that the Krikkitmen are fighting for the cause of cricket and not the people of cricket. They are true ideologues, aren't they?
Yeah. And during the raid, the rebel leader Jal, of course, takes that moment to go into labor, and Romana and K9 help her deliver which turn out to be twins, as Sir Robot and the other rebels tried to hold off the advancing Krikkitmen as the Parliament building gets set on fire around them. And the rebels escape the building with the incomplete plans and the new twins in tow. And the Doctor shares that the crashed spaceship that kind of kicked off this whole mess was still around in a museum somewhere, but was curiously lacking a pilot. And there was no body ever found of the pilot. And wanting to learn more about the missing elements of the supernova bomb, the Doctor and Romana travel by TARDIS back to the Rassilon era to consult a supercomputer called Hector, which was mentioned in the opening of the kind of the prologue, which was developed by a squid-like species called the Allovians, or Allovians. And so the Allovians had the supercomputer work to develop the supernova bomb, but of course Hector the computer introduced a flaw into its design because rightfully it didn't trust its creators not to use it. And as the computer was being destroyed by the Allovians, who were angry about its deception in giving them a faulty bomb, Hector has a mysterious visitor visit him in its final moments of sentience.
So as they return to cricket, Romana steals some of the Doctor's thunder by sharing that she worked out that the crash ship on cricket that ended their isolation was in fact Allovian in design, and she wonders if somehow that's how the cricket got the idea for a supernova bomb. And the Doctor and Romana allow themselves to be temporarily captured and tortured by the Krikkitmen before turning the tables on their captors and escaping into the Parliament complex to address the senior leaders of the planet, who are all gathered together conveniently. I think it's one of those small planets, isn't it?
Yeah. They're all there, yeah.
And the Doctor argues that even though the cricket have no deity of their own, their evolution was guided by an external alien force, because the series of events that have led them to this moment of getting ready to use a new version of the supernova bomb were too perfect to happen by random chance. He suggests that the influence might be the dust cloud that surrounds the planet Cricket. And the Krikkitmen attempt to detonate the supernova bomb at this time, which looks not unlike a small red ball, possibly like a cricket ball. But this bomb has the same flaw as the one that was introduced by Hector millennia earlier, so it doesn't detonate.
Yeah. And one of the older cricket elders, a woman called Nerys, assumes the throne by ordering the Krikkitmen to kill the current leader. And the Krikkitmen obey her command, and it turns out that they're under her control and not the rest of the council. And the Doctor and Romana manage to escape the building, having been rescued by Jal and Sir Robot and their newborns, who are in a pram. So they look up at the night sky, and they see what they think for a moment are stars, but then realize it's the Krikkitmen battleships coming through the cloud in orbit, poised to conquer the universe. And Romana decides to bring the cricket pavilion back to Gallifrey to discuss with acting President Baruza why the pavilion is able to breach the transduction barriers. And the Krikkitmen are planning to invade Gallifrey first, using the cricket pavilion TARDIS-like items, and then after they're done with Gallifrey, they want to move on to Earth. I thought the description of the transduction barriers were pretty fun. So it was the first barrier was a force field that could tear matter apart at a subatomic level. The second barrier was made of ideas and refused to let anything pass because it didn't believe it was possible. The third barrier used reflection to counter any approach with an equal and opposite idea, and the fourth barrier of stubborn philosophy refused to believe in the existence of any alien craft and would reiterate this until the enemy gave up.
So as the invading cricket pavilions begin breaking through Gallifrey's transduction barriers, Barusa orders the release of all of the 11 remaining war TARDISes from stasis. And so these are referred to as kind of like the first 11, which is a cricketing joke.
Ah.
because the cricket, so you have 11 people in a cricket team, and like each club will have a first 11. Yeah, so there were originally 12 war TARDISes, but one was lost in the effort to originally imprison the Krikkitmen millennia ago.
See, I thought that was a reference to, because I didn't pick up on the cricket reference, but I thought it was a reference to the 11, which is like a recurring villain in Big Finish. And I was like, wow, that's really prescient of James Goss to kind of seed that in years before it was a thing in Big Finish. But yeah, that totally went over my head.
No, it's a cricket joke. But, yeah, I prefer your idea because I just found that really on the nose. But yeah, so the TARDISes dematerialize before Barusa can give any further orders to the sentient ships. Meanwhile, Romana arrives on Earth via a captured cricket pavilion moments after the original attack at Lord's. She steals an ambulance and goes to meet the Prime Minister at 10 Downing Street. And the Prime Minister is a woman here. And we're not explicitly told that it's Margaret Thatcher. It could also be the female Prime Minister that you see in Unit stories that is not Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah.
That's because Paul Cornell is insistent, I think, that Unit happened in the 70s and that the female Prime Minister is Barbara Castle. Who was a politician at the time, I think, a Labour politician.
I will say Dan Starkey very much does a Thatcher impersonation in the audio. But yeah, it is. Yeah. She is unnamed.
Yeah, so Romana's trying to get the Prime Minister to like sort out some planetary defences, but yeah, we don't really have any. And it turns out that the Prime Minister is familiar with the Doctor, having met his third incarnation at a dinner party several years earlier. So I think this is a reference to Day of the Daleks, isn't it? Because I think Styles gets mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that kind of book where there's
lots of little references.
Yeah.
And when Romana almost runs into herself returning to Lord's, just after the attack from earlier, there's an amusing reference to the time that London was invaded 3 times in one day, with references to Wotan from the War Machines, the Chameleons from the Faceless Ones, and then, of course, the Daleks from Evil of the Daleks, all getting name-checked.
It was also round about the time in real life when England was hosting the Football World Cup and winning it, so I think people were distracted.
Yeah. Didn't notice all that going on. So then Romana and Thatcher decide to take the cricket pavilion into Earth's orbit, where Romana shockingly detonates the planet's nuclear arsenal through Thatcher or the Prime Minister calling one of the Polaris submarines to start launching the bombs, which kind of create a chain reaction and everyone starts firing their nuclear weapons. But Romana is able to gather and channel all the released energy and radiation through the cricket pavilion, and this has the effect of making the Earth briefly appear to have been destroyed in a wonderful cliffhanger, but really it's safe. And Romana redirects the energy and freezes some of the Krikkitmen Pavilion fleet into a time loop. And while she's able to get most of the fleet, parts of the fleet had already broken off earlier en route not to Earth, but to the 5 planets that had harbored those pieces of the Wicket Gate from earlier for further revenge. And back on Krikkit, the new ruler, Chief Elder Nerys, she's visited by 2 evangelicals dressed in white named Richfield and Wedgwood. And they're trying to get in on the ground floor of Krikkit's potential new god, as they sense that there's a lot of money to be made with the planet re-emerging violently into the universe.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell if Richfield and Wedgwood were meant to be a reference to something. I have to admit, I didn't think that, because they show up relatively late in the narrative and they try to be this double act, but it felt like a weird place to introduce them, and I didn't feel that they were a good fit with the very xenophobic cricket leader and why she would start trusting them. So
yeah,
I wasn't sure if their names were like a reference to something in cricket or
nope.
or what, but
no. Well, and also they describe themselves as being Jehovah's Witnesses at one point.
Yeah.
And it's an odd
yeah.
thing, their instruction.
Yeah.
And like you, I'm not quite sure what they add. But yeah, so the Doctor and K9 take the TARDIS to the dust cloud surrounding Krikkit, where they emerge in an impossible meadow. And the Doctor correctly surmises that the god of cricket is in fact Hector, the supercomputer that's millions of years old. And Hector appears and confirms the Doctor's suspicions that he's been the force behind the manipulations of the Cricket people's development over time. And the Doctor notes that Hector was always in the cloud. Blowing it up didn't destroy it, just simply dispersed Hector across the galaxy. And the computer confesses he's changed his mind, but now he wants to wipe all life in the universe out for a laugh. So, feels slightly Douglas Adams.
Yeah.
Though, his computers tend to be a bit more downtrodden, don't they?
Yeah. And Sir Robot pays Chief Elder Nerys a visit and informs her that all of the Krikkitmen have been deactivated. And this clearly isn't the case, and Sir Robot has revealed that he's not part of the robot collective, so Nerys orders him killed and dismantled. And she also dispatches a Krikkitman to Master Control to ensure that all the Krikkitmen are still switched on. But the Doctor's already been to the Master Control station and has put a bit of tape over the central on-off switch, inverting the labels with felt tip marker. And this causes the Krikkitman who scans the console to switch everyone off when he sees the switches in the wrong position. And when he does so, the machine collapses forward and throws the switch the other way, rebooting the central system again and turning them all back on, but then carries this interaction out over and over again until the Krikkitmen are all overwhelmed from being rebooted continuously and they all explode. So, a rather convenient and clever way to get rid of them all.
Yeah, it's a fun thing.
So, meanwhile, in the dust cloud, the Doctor carries on his conversation with Hector until he's able to circle round to a willow tree in the cloud construct and enter at the base of its trunk. And it turns out that this is the missing 12th battle TARDIS. And the multiple wars started by the Krikkitmen, as well as everything else going on with the Alovians, was just a long game to get the other 11 war TARDISes freed from their imprisonment on Gallifrey. And the Doctor's appalled by this and learns that the rest of the plan, to re-engineer the universe in a design and compact way, allowing for maximum light and no darkness, to bring about a great war and only partner with the surviving life to rule the cosmos.
So the Doctor leaves the construct and retrieves Romana from a park bench on Westminster Green, and she's changed and is now wearing one of Margaret Thatcher's trademark skirt suits. And he thanks her for saving the Earth and declares to her, in true Doctor fashion, he's the most important person in the universe. He just doesn't know why. And back on the planet Cricket, Richfield and Wedgwood are encouraging Chief Elder Nerys to start a religion and declare a holy war. But she doesn't like the Empire logo designs they come up with, though, and so she rejects their influence. So that's good.
Yeah. And the Dr. Romana and K9 materialize back on the still smoldering grounds at Lord's, and the Doctor returns the Ashes trophy and then asks to bowl around. And the batsman turns out to be a Krikkitman from earlier, which was not networked due to some damage it had sustained from some rubble falling on it. And the cricket ball that the Doctor retrieves from his pocket turns out to be the supernova bomb, but he realizes this, in the split second as he lets go of the ball, throwing it down the crease. And the ball does an odd bounce, causing the Krikkitman to miss the ball, and the ball, or the bomb, nicks off a bail off the wicket before dropping into the wicket-keeper's hands. And the cricket batsman is declared out, but before the Krikkitman can kind of spin around and kill the wicket-keeper with his bat, the Doctor grabs it from its hands and deftly decapitates the last Krikkitman in existence. And the Doctor and Romana leave Lord's on fire once more as the Krikkitman explodes into a ball of flame on the pitch.
Yeah, so the Doctor and Romana return to the Great Khan's planet, where there's a tiger warlord, where they returned a steel piece of the Wicket Gate, and the entire Khan naval fleet starts to sink due to the Doctor introducing a voracious woodworm that eats up and sinks the fleet. And they now return the other pieces as well, and encounter Mr. Fogg, who you'll remember from the dramatic reading, who's now just a simple fisherman, his world's economy and his position at its peak destroyed. And whilst returning the Wicket Gate pieces, the Doctor also has a hand at playing God, moving some flightless birds from a higher gravity planet to a lower gravity one, giving them the power of flight. It's these things I was like, it's not very fun. I don't know what this is all about. But, yes.
Yeah.
So,
One of the things that wasn't fully explained in the book, but is mentioned in the kind of the appendix and the treatment in the end, is how the wooden beam is reconstituted from the ashes, is then summarily burnt again back to its ashes form before the Doctor hands the trophy back over. But none of that's in the book itself. I was just like reading the treatment, I'm like, oh, so that's what happened there.
Yes.
And then, meanwhile, at the far end of time, the 11 remaining war TARDISes despair because the universe is entirely too peaceful for their liking. And then, suddenly, the Black Guardian appears, sort of trying to materialize to recruit the TARDISes. But then he's displaced by the white-dressed Richfield and Wedgwood when they show up and ask the TARDISes if they're interested in perhaps rebranding. So,
Yeah.
that does make me wonder, were Richfield and Wedgwood supposed to be agents of the White Guardian?
Yeah.
They displace the Black Guardian at the end, but it's hard to say because the narrative really is silent on that point.
Yeah. Or whether there's some kind of like sapphire and steel kind of thing, or whether they're Eternals, or it's these things that they pose questions, but they're not questions I want answered because I didn't find it particularly interesting. So the Doctor and Romana are relaxing on the planet Cricket, and Romana is now dressed in cricket whites, rather like the Fifth Doctor, and the Doctor admires her outfit and mentions he should take up the game properly someday, as it doesn't feel as dangerous as it once did. Yeah, as an aside, cricket can be a very dangerous game. One sort of prominent Australian cricketer was killed in a match.
Oh, wow.
Just because the ball hit his helmet in a sort of like a very unfortunate position. It caused brain damage, basically.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess it's one of these games, when you have people bowling at, was it like 70 miles an hour or so, and a cricket ball is hard. It's a hard lever. So, it will hurt.
Also, with the comments on like what Romana's wearing and stuff, it does make the Fifth Doctor's choice of costume a little bizarre, because it'd be like dressing up like a Terminator or something for your entire run. But I mean, it makes sense too in that the Doctor's more intrigued, and it kind of sets up like his later interest in cricket here too, I guess.
I mean, I guess maybe it's like some post-regenerative confusion or something. Yeah, you thought maybe like Nissa or someone would have sort of said, or like, and like in the Five Doctors, nobody says, or Arkham Infinity for that matter, nobody sort of said, why are you dressed as a cricketer? Have we not been through this? I mean, Baruta doesn't mention this, but he's busy doing other things, isn't he? But yeah, so on the planet Cricket, the Doctor has managed to reassemble Sir Robot, but now as a side effect, Sir Robot speaks Esperanto. Why? Who knows? And the Doctor mentions that he took care of Hector, the supercomputer, as well. And the dust cloud that Hector has been inhabiting sort of got sucked into a war TARDIS via an implosion.
Yeah, that tree from earlier that was in the construct that was in the dust cloud, yeah.
Yeah. And so on the planet's surface, the Doctor, Romana and K9 watch the consequences of this action, like the dust cloud disappearing from the heavens, and revealing the stars and galaxies emerging in the night sky on Cricket for the very first time. Yeah, that's the end of the story. We have some more appendices, don't we?
Yeah, there's an appendix called Life, the Universe, and Photocopying, and then we get Douglas Adams' original treatment outline, and then like the first 3 chapters of the book if they were written with Sarah Jane Smith as the companion. So some nice little extras there.
Yeah.
There's a fondness for deck chairs that's introduced to at the very end here, where they're sitting on deck chairs on a beach in Cricket, and I wonder if that's to help bridge the seasons here, because the next episode to air is from the Leisure Hive, and you get that opening long tracking shot on the beach.
Yeah, it's got to be, hasn't it? I reckon. What did you reckon of the Sarah Jane version? Before we go on to talking about what you thought, because I thought that worked.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah,
I can see why picking. Because it was really James Goss's choice to
go for Romana,
go for Romana, but it fits with the Douglas Adams era, and certainly he's written other Doctor and Romana stuff, so I can see why he went with that approach. But yeah, it would have made for an interesting change if it had been Sarah Jane, and yeah. One dangling thread that wasn't resolved for me that I was hoping to was what's happening with Chief Elder Nerys. I mean, she's a bit crazy and bloodthirsty, and I don't think she's going to make the best leader for cricket going forward, but that was a dangling thread that we don't know what happened there. I did like that one of the working titles for the Krikkitmen was Doctor Who Saves the Universe. That would have been a fun title, I think. But yeah, so very Douglas Adams-y. What did you think of the story as a whole?
Unlike you, I don't really care for quest narratives. It was fun. I think there were I find quest narratives just a little bit kind of like stop-start, and also there wasn't an enormous amount of variety. I mean, okay, sure, like the planets were all slightly different, but I could have done with somewhere that felt really, really alien or something. But I also appreciate that we're doing a kind of like, a Douglas Adams romp. Mm-hmm. So I think James Goss is kind of slightly trapped, because like there's loads of references to Douglas Adams' work, including non-Doctor Who work. And if you read the appendix, you see just how much he has just put in various stuff from other Douglas Adams things, including things that were never published. And I think, it's good, but I don't know. It's just it's one of these things like it's like listening to kind of like albums done by posthumous releases of albums that were never properly completed before the artist had died. Where you kind of think, I can see where we're kind of going. Mm-hmm. Sometimes with Douglas Adams's books, they are very episodic and everything, which as a kid I remember quite enjoying, but over time I've just found a little bit frustrating.
Okay. I think I liked it a little more than you.
Yes.
But yeah, I guess for me, there's a real madness and zaniness to this era of Doctor Who, and I feel like James Goss was able to capture that perfectly, where it's not so much about the story as it is just getting together and telling tales, and the story progresses like for a paragraph, and then you'll get 2 paragraphs of an aside about something completely unrelated, and to me I get a lot of enjoyment out of that, I guess, and James Goss had captured that aspect of Douglas Adams beautifully, I think. It is like treacle, though, where it can bog you down when there's so much of it, and almost an overdose of campiness. Yeah. But yeah, with that said, I thoroughly enjoyed myself here. It's light, it's fun, it's whimsical, it's just what I needed. In terms of something fun to read. I also liked how epic it was in its scale and approach. It feels very cosmic at times, and at least I could see this working as a feature film, too big for the small screen. Another kind of pleasant little surprise for me from the book was K9. How much personality he's given in different little moments, like politely coughing when the Doctor takes credit for some rapid calculations that K9 does, or K9 affectionately nudging the Doctor's leg at a few points in the narrative. And there's a wonderful conversation that the Doctor has with his robot friend about sentience and different levels of artificial intelligence. And I guess if I were to rate this, gosh, I think it's a 9 out of 10 for me. I suspect your score may be lower, but it could have been even higher. But to your point, yes, at some point it's just too on the nose and a little oversaturated in that Douglas Adams style. If that had been reined in and constrained just a little bit, it might have been a 10 for me. I just feel like it really captured that era of Doctor Who. I suppose I would have also maybe toned down the amount of violence present to better match the era, because that stood out for me a little bit. But how about you? How would you score this one?
Yeah, so I think for me it's a 7.
Okay.
I did very much enjoy it, so like early on and everything, but then as we descended into a kind of like a quest narrative, it just
which, I get, because I like quest narratives a lot more than you do. So totally makes sense. And,
I ended up kind of like predicting where we were going a bit, like with Hector and stuff like that. And so I was like, oh, yeah, okay. I can guess a little bit where we're going. So, But it was interesting reading the appendix as to how faithful the book was to Douglas Adams' idea. And also, the thing that I thought was really cool was the researcher who alerted James Goss to the fact that we actually had notes for the Krikkitmen, and they were there in Douglas Adams' archive. She has the surname of Marvin.
Wow.
And I thought that was just awesome. Marvin the Paranoid Android. I just thought that was quite sweet. So yeah.
And I can see too, like, how the whole quest narrative is reminiscent of the Key to Time season, and
Yeah.
I did really like Romana's character, but I kept picturing Mary Tam instead of Lala Ward for some reason, but maybe it was just that whole similarity to the Key to Time season. I am excited to read more of James Goss's work. Stylistically, this Douglas Adams homage is so far removed from what we got in The Blood Cell,
Yes.
which was, a first-person diary narrative from the prison warden. It really makes me want to read something else he's written, just to see how diverse his storytelling styles are, to see if we would get something completely different again.
Yeah.
I'm sure his two adaptations of, City of Death and The Pirate Planet are probably very similar to the style on display here, but yeah.
But yeah, it does feel like Douglas Adams in its style. So I mean, it's a very versatile writer who can ape that style so well. Because there are so many examples of bad attempts at trying to channel Douglas Adams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I wouldn't want every Doctor Who novel to be written in this Adams style, but
no.
Occasionally it's wonderful. But a little does go a long way. It's like a rich dessert in that sense.
Yeah. Right.
Shall we?
This is where we get listener feedback, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So this month we have a letter.
A letter? Ooh.
Or an email, I guess. If I printed it out, it would be a letter.
Yes.
We got a wonderful piece of mail from Shaggy from the Fire and Water Podcast Network, and he writes that he enjoyed our coverage of The Tides of Time and calls it a fascinating listen because he's biased about one of the strips and can't look at it impartially. Sometime in the mid-'80s, he got a copy of DWM Doctor Who Monthly 81, and being in the States, the magazine was really hard to find back then, and it was the only issue of the magazine he owned for years, so he read it cover to cover many times, and it contained part 4 of 6 of Four-Dimensional Vistas. And he was so blown away to see the Ice Warriors and the Time Meddler together in the story, having further adventures, and even better with them teaming up. And while he agrees that much of the art, especially for that section, was sketchy, the Ice Warriors and the Meddler looked spot on to him. And he said it would be another 20 years or so until he read the complete 4D Vistas story. And during those intervening years, he had built up in his mind to be mythically epic, telling other Doctor Who fans about this nearly forgotten comic strip featuring his favorite Doctor, the Ice Warriors, the Time Meddlers, Black Ops soldiers, explosions. He says it's a recipe for awesome. And then when he finally read it in the 2000s, he had to accept that, while the recipe was great, someone baked that cake improperly. He says he loved our coverage, and he thought we were very fair and probably correct in our assessments, but especially for that strip in particular, he has those nostalgic goggles on, and the kid in him still loves that.
Yeah.
He also mentions regarding comic companions that in addition to Stockbridge being in the 8th Doctor comic strips, it's actually through Max Edison that the 8th Doctor meets Izzy, and she's the only one in town that believes in Max and his stories. And he says that Izzy is a fantastic comic strip-only companion, and the other ones he likes include Croton the Cyberman, Absalom Doc, the Dalek Killer, and from the more recent Titans comics, he really enjoys Alice with the 11th Doctor and Gabby with the 10th Doctor. And he says he would take some of those comic-only companions over their TV or audio counterparts. But yeah, and he wraps it up by saying he thanks us for the continued work on the podcast, congratulations on passing 50 episodes, and that he's looking forward to the next 50.
Cool. No pressure.
Yeah. And listeners, you can write us at andwbcpodcast@gmail.com, and we may read your letter out on a future episode, so please do get in touch.
Sure.
How about on the Facebook side?
Yeah, so we've had our usual smattering of likes, but I think as with every month, I think our social media action tends to be a lot more on the Twitter side.
And Twitter, we've heard from Keith Say, who thanks us for the sadly topical review of Winner Takes All, but that he enjoyed the episode. And Keith also comments on the Krikkitmen book. He said it was a fun book, but he also thought it was a totally pointless because he'd already read the story in Hitchhikers. And he said it felt a little bit like a cash grab using the Douglas Adams name. he did say he liked the line, "Cricket is a game you play for days that never seems to start," which we touched on. And yeah, so I think he probably aligns more with your take on the story there, Chris.
Yes. Yeah.
And we've heard from Sesam's bookcase, who says, in regards to Winner Takes All, that we've always been conscious of the outside world and never shied away from mentioning things when appropriate on the podcast, and that they appreciate the maturity in handling the topics we talked about last time and called a rarity in some modern fan content, and loved this episode. And then T. Gorman 83 writes that they always love books like Winner Takes All, where we get to see the Doctor do mundane things from everyday life. So yeah, please do continue to send in your comments via Facebook and Twitter. Mm-hmm. And please do leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or whatever service you use to listen to the show. It definitely helps new listeners find us.
Yeah. So
I think, Chris,
yes,
this brings us to what we're going to be reading next time.
Yeah.
And we're going to be taking a little break from the Doctor cycle.
Yes, we are. We are indeed.
How long will that break be? We don't even know.
No, we don't know quite yet at the moment. But
it's your turn. So
yeah. So I thought that we would go into a corner of the Doctor Who universe that we've not been to. A corner of Doctor Who universe that you're not particularly familiar with, Matt, I don't think.
Okay.
So, yeah, we are going to be reading one of the class books.
Ah.
We're going to be reading The Stone House by A.K. Benedict.
Okay.
So, A.K. Benedict, I think she's got some film deals sorted out. So she's quite a coup, I think, for having written a class book. When I mentioned her name to Lauren was like, "Oh, I think I've heard of her." So
that's exciting. I have to admit, are there 8 episodes of Class? I don't even.
I think there was. Yeah.
I think I've seen the first 3.
Okay.
So now this is very interesting. I have to decide if I'm gonna watch the rest of Class before I read it or not.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So
that is exciting.
Yes.
And a relatively new spin-off as well.
Yes. She's in a band with a friend of ours called the Slice Girls, and it's horror writers, horror and thriller writers doing music at conventions.
Huh. Interesting. Wow. Well, maybe we can get someone special for the dramatic reading then.
Yes. Yeah. If there isn't an audiobook for it, I haven't checked.
I don't know if there is or not. But yeah,
no.
So that's Class, The Stone House by A.K. Benedict.
Yes.
For July.
Yeah, indeed.
So we'll be going to Coal Hill.
We will.
I hope there's mention of some missing teachers there. Both Clara and others.
Well, there is a memorial board that we see in Class.
There is, yeah. Quite a few folks on there.
Yes. So,
very cool.
Yeah.
Not as familiar with that corner of the universe, like you said. I've purchased like the Big Finish Class audios, but never listened to them. And I have it on Blu-ray, but I never finished it.
Yeah.
Not because I thought it was awful or anything. It just, I've also never finished Torchwood or Sarah Jane Adventures yet either. So
okay, fair enough. Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah, because only 3 Class books were published, and one of them was by James Goss.
Yeah.
So I was not going to do that one. But the James Goss one has an awesome name. It's, is it like, what was the name? What She Does Next Will Astound You. I think it's an awesome name for a book. So, so The Stonehouse. Yes.
So,
cool.
Until next time, this has been Matt in Minnesota.
Chris in Sam London. Happy reading. Stay safe.
Thank you for listening to the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. Special thanks to George C. Music for use of their song Doctor Who Theme Swing Jazz Version. You can follow us on Twitter at ANDWBC Podcast and like us on Facebook. Help other listeners to find us by leaving a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice. You can contact the show by emailing your thoughts to andwbcpodcast@gmail.com. And until next month, happy reading.
My call recorder's going.
Yep, as is mine. Yeah, it suddenly went away, and then it only seems to be letting me try to download the demo version. I was like, what?
Oh, no.
But I've already paid for this. I was like, but this is a bit rubbish. I looked in my inbox and managed to find when I bought it in 2017, which takes you to a button that lets you download the latest version. I just thought, oh, how user hostile this is.
Well, I'm glad it worked out.
Yes, but I was just like, oh, I'm crying out loud. I just realised my call recorder had just stopped. So I've just started it again. I don't know when that had stopped.
Okay.
So, yeah, it had been going, but anyway, so I've started that going again.
Oh, that's very
so
cool.
So you okay with class?
Oh, yeah.
I did have a backup just in case. But,
oh, no, that sounds great.
Yeah.